Coinbase's mission. When we launched, it was 1 million developers, 1 billion users, and that's still our long-term vision. But what we did this year was we came out with a mission about what we're trying to build, which is building a global on-chain economy, increases innovation, creativity, and freedom.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Colors of Web3 and Entrepreneurship. My name is Lum, your Web3 host today. This is episode number 28, and here I am today with Ryan Nitz. He's a head of developer relation at Base. Some of you may have known, Base is the layer 2 blockchain on Ethereum network, backed by Coinbase, public company listed in the New York Stock Exchange. Anyway, Ryan, would you like to give a quick introduction about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely, Lauren. Thanks for having me today. As mentioned, Ryan Nitz, head of Base DevRel. I am a leading DevRel, but my background is software engineer. So I spent about 15, 20 years building out mainly distributed systems. I've always been a fan of internet infrastructure, and that's generally been the thesis of my career. Prior to jumping into Base at Coinbase, I spent the previous 5 years at AWS, Amazon Web Services, in a similar role. And it's funny. I was looking for a new challenge, and when I joined AWS, we were still convincing people that cloud computing is like the future, and that this is the way everything is going to move. And there are all sorts of skeptics. People didn't really believe it. But by the time I left, it was no longer if you were going to move to the cloud, but when you were going to move to the cloud. And I see crypto at a very similar inflection point. We're still out there. We're still teaching people about it. We're still highlighting that this is the future of tech and this is the future of online. On-chain is the future of online. But I imagine in the next couple of years, it'll be no longer when will you go on-chain or if you'll go on-chain, but when. So that's me in a nutshell.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, of course, we'll dive a lot more into details for all the Web3 related stuff. But before we dive into that, maybe just like to get to know you a bit better from your professional background. Have you, I guess, since like in your early 20s up until now, have you always been working in tech, or how did you first begin your career, and what actually brought you into AWS, and then from there switching over?
Yeah, absolutely. I have always worked in tech. I studied computer science in college and came out and worked for, this is dating me a bit, but worked for some Java J2E software companies. At the time, that was all the hotness in terms of internet infrastructure and how people were building online. Worked in a number of industries. I did a bunch of entrepreneurial activities. I co-founded a couple companies. And
Nice.
Before AWS, I operated as a hired gun, kind of a mercenary from an engineering standpoint. I would come in, I would build out new products. I was able to take, projects and ideas from zero to full release, and then help scale the businesses. So along the way, my startups didn't do all that well. I learned a lot in the process, but I was able to then join MongoDB, spent 3 years there. Helped scale them from about 8 people to 1,200 people initially.
Wow.
Released their initial SaaS infrastructure, and did the same for Casisto, which is a fintech company in New York. Took it from a research project effectively to their Gen 1 launch. Along the way, though, I'd worked a lot with startups. I'd co-founded startups. I'd helped startups. And then AWS reached out one day and they were like, would you like to work and nurture and kind of mentor startups? And I was like, why not? That sounds like a great idea. So that was a bit of a career change for me. I went from being like a pure software engineer to being more of a mentor and more of a guide for startups. And along the way, I worked with a number of on-chain startups, helped them kind of design initial centralized infrastructure components that they had, and had been a hobbyist. I got into crypto around 2012.
Wow,
just
super
my crypto origin stories. I was, incredibly disillusioned by the financial crisis in 2008-9. I saw all this opulence going on in New York, and these bankers seemed to have just unlimited money. And then when the financial crisis hit, it was really clear that they had all been really kind of effectively scamming people and living off of money made through nefarious means. So I was a little bit disillusioned. And then in 2012, I finally got a hold of the Bitcoin white paper and I read it. And I was really, really interested in it. And I saw the way that the future was going to go. I saw this trustless system. I saw this transparent system where, people can't hide trillions of dollars of debt and questionable investment. And then really the next kind of inflection point was about 2017, where I know it was a little bit after it was released, but I saw the Ethereum white paper and I saw that the programmable blockchain was a much better concept and really the evolution of where we were going. And so I'm still love Bitcoin, but I'm definitely an ETH maxi these days.
I see. When you wow, that sounds like quite a lot of things you have done in your career so far. You began out building like Web2 companies. Was it like SaaS companies, things like that, like software as a service?
They were all SaaS companies. For the most part, I built a CDN. It was called Panther CDN. That was one of my first forays into massively globally distributed systems. There were definitely peer-to-peer components. It wasn't like a peer-to-peer network like we have in crypto, but there were components of it that were very similar.
Interesting.
And then,
Sorry, I'm wondering. So, what was the reason that one failed? Was it because were you way too ahead of the time, or there was some other reason? we can always learn from
The learning there was don't compete with AWS. So we came out the gate and we were like, at the time there were a handful of content delivery networks, and really the only leader in the space was Akamai. And Akamai was doing great, but they were incredibly expensive. It was a little bit difficult to onboard with them, do business with them at the time. And so what we did was we came out where we're going to be within 10% of their performance and we're going to be 10x cheaper. And we actually started off and it was going really well. And then AWS released CloudFront about a year into it, maybe a little bit more. And they were also 10 times cheaper and also within 10% of the range. So it was a bit of a challenge. And so the decision was made to sell the business. It was sold to a Korean firm first. And the technology was really solid. They ended up replacing their CDN network with the technology that we had developed. And then later that was flipped to a Chinese CDN. They sold it again. So the lesson there is, it's hard to compete with AWS. And, especially on the infrastructure side, there was a large capital investment to deploy all these nodes and to manage them globally. And AWS was just really well situated, given that they had been operating effectively CDNs for the retail business for a long time. Yeah,
there's like a huge, I guess, network effects, right, that AWS have, right, for that. Also. Okay, I totally understand the reason. I'll go into fast forward a bit to the Bitcoin white paper that you read. Like the first time you read it, did you fully understand like the things behind the Bitcoin white paper? Like I for me, it was pretty technical. Right? I think it took me maybe a second or third time to fully get it.
Some of the cryptography was a bit beyond my capabilities, but the overall concept of a peer-to-peer network that didn't have any sort of point of trust, that was all pretty clear. I dabbled a bit in peer-to-peer networks just as a hobbyist. When LimeWire came out, I was looking at their source, decompiled their source, and was making modifications to the network just to not to the network, just the node that I was running, just to understand how the system operated and how it communicated with each other. And that part was pretty clear. What it didn't really have is it didn't have the ability to transact with value. So it was really, the precursor for what eventually became decentralized blockchain. Not necessarily LimeWire, but this similar peer-to-peer technology.
Yeah, that's true. I think blockchain is actually like an area inside distributed ledger technology, right? Yeah, it's part of it. Yeah, I think most people may not realize it, but it is like just a part of that. So, yeah, super fascinating. And then, did you start to run Node while you're working at AWS? Right? Did you start to run Node? Did you begin coding? What got you?
It was more along the lines. I didn't spend much time building software or coding on that side. It was more just watching and learning. I did, the part that I helped with the on-chain startups at the time, the Web3 startups, was really along the lines of how do they synchronize nodes? How do they secure nodes? that they were running themselves. How do they do fast failover in the event of the node failure, et cetera? So really help them with snapshots and understanding how to restore state without requiring the complete node to synchronize again. And a lot of that work has become pretty common for node operators with quick sync and with snapshots and everything like that. That's the industry pretty much adopted those similar kind of mechanisms. Definitely not claiming that I invented that or was the founder of that, but I saw like it was just completely obvious. Like I don't want to wait however many days or hours for the node to synchronize again. It can recover. With missing some data, it can catch up eventually.
I see. Yeah, that thing make totally sense. So were you using like when you at AWS, did you use like AWS solution? Were you kind of using AWS solution to give the Web3 companies an edge or something like that?
Yeah, it was pretty novel technology. It was a pretty novel solution. It was mainly taking EBS and doing snapshots, and then taking that snapshot and restoring it to a volume for a node, so that when the node comes online, that it can actually operate on that. The other parts were just using novel AWS security solutions. People were concerned about running nodes and about the adversarial nature of blockchain and about being attacked. And so just how do you restrict access to those nodes? How do you take and define security groups so that you can limit who you interact with on that side?
Nice. Well, sounds like quite a lot of interesting work that you did at AWS. Yeah. So before we dive into Base, actually, just one fun question. What can you share with us? What do you do for fun in your free time? Like your hobbies?
Sure, absolutely. In the summer, I hike a lot. I'm currently hiking the Adirondack 46ers. Those are the peaks in New York that are all above 4,000 feet.
4,000 feet. Okay, so that's like 1,300 meters. Yeah, just for the
your math is better on that side as well.
Yeah,
appreciate it. Yeah. So I've been hiking those. I'm about halfway through those. I also hike a decent amount within an hour and a half drive of New York City. And then in the winter, I spend a lot of time skiing.
Nice.
I go out west a lot. I spend a lot of time in Utah and Colorado, and just really love the freedom and the enjoyment of skiing off piste in the mountains. So if I had to summarize it, I'm a mountain person, not necessarily a beach person.
Okay.
I guess is the way I kind of look at it, but beaches are nice as well.
I see. Cool. Yeah, I think I remember last time. I mean, after we met at the East Global India, I think you told me you were going to ski, right? Yeah, you went on the ski trip alone. Yeah. Okay, that sounds awesome.
Ski season was coming up. That was in the first ski trip of the season was December. So.
Cool. And by the way, just curious, do you work full remote at Base at the moment? Is it?
So Base is remote first. There is a Coinbase office that we can take advantage of. So I typically try to go in about once per week. But sometimes you're on the road, sometimes you're traveling. That doesn't always work out. But generally, we try to get together one day a week. There's Base is definitely a global organization. There's people all over the country and world, but the core, a lot of the nexus is definitely in New York. A lot in Brooklyn, Manhattan, etc. New York City.
I see. Cool, awesome. All right, so without any further ado, let's go ahead and deep dive into your current company, Base. Feel free to share with us any presentation or deck or slide or website that you might have prepared.
Yeah, sure. Let me just jump into that. Awesome. So, a lot of what I like to do.
Thank you for tailoring the name. That was really cool.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a great title. It's a great title. Yeah, a lot of what we like to do is just really give an overview of what Base is, what's new, scaling Base. I can make this really conversational. So a lot of people don't know, so I'll just touch on it. Base is an Ethereum L2. It's an EVM equivalent. It's built on the OP stack from the Optimism Foundation and OP Labs. Base is the first external contributor of organizational contributor. So we have an engineering team actively helping build out the OP stack. Everything is released under public goods, full MIT open source licensing. Yeah. So any work that either Base or the OP Labs contribute is all public goods, and people can take and use that however they want. Base is a part of the Optimism Superchain. What that means is that we're in an agreement with the Optimism Foundation in order to help build out an interoperable series of L2 networks where we're all required to run the same version of the OP stack and to be completely compliant. There's protections under the law of chains, which is an agreement put in place by the Superchain to define what's required. So, and what's required to participate. So some of those rules are have to run the same versions, have to upgrade, etc. The other rules are you cannot modify block space. If you were in violation of that, then theoretically the Optimism Security Council could route the L1 or the sequencer away from the network or from base, and then somebody else could operate it that wouldn't be adjusting the block space or wouldn't be tampering with the block space.
I see. But by the way, was the decision to choose OP stack, was it because like the base team or Coinbase team had always been working with Optimism, something like that? What was it?
Reason I mean, Coinbase definitely works with Optimism, but we did a tour of the horizon, and it really was we were looking for projects that we were aligned to. It didn't really seem to make sense to create our own L1 network. There's so much good work out there that's already been done. We were super aligned with the EVM space, given the growth of everything that's been going on there. Vitalik views the L2 networks as the scaling mechanism. So, security and decentralization is handled by the Ethereum L1. And then the scaling mechanism for the Ethereum ecosystem is going to be done through L2 networks. The other side of it is we were really aligned with the Optimism Foundation and OP Labs and their ethos and their outlook. Some of the core things that they have, which is retroactive funding, which is, build it, show impact, and you'll be rewarded. The other side is related to impact equals profits. You don't need to be a starving artist in order to earn a living developing public goods or open source. And so all of these really factors together. We were also really excited about the Superchain vision. Optimism, the OP stack is currently an optimistic rollup, but, ZK is coming very soon. And so there are, the future technology vision and the roadmap for the OP stack we were really excited by. We did talk to other kind of pseudo open source networks where it's like business license and, kind of the relationship was, you're welcome to license our technology. You really won't have a say in anything, and you're not going to be necessarily contributing. And there were less partnerships and more like commercial agreements. And so everything with the Optimism on the Optimism side was super aligned. One of the things that I do like to point out, and I'll jump back to some of these others later, is this is the scaling mechanism of L2s. So the blue line at the bottom is the Ethereum L1, and that's basically static, and it's been static for a number of years because effectively the Ethereum blockchain is at nearly at capacity. And so if you take a look at the red line, that's the scaling factor over the L1 by the L2s. And just so everybody's on the same page, in order to be considered an L2, you need to roll up or you need to use Ethereum as the L1, and your native gas token needs to be Ethereum as well. If you're using another gas token, then really what you are is a sidechain and not a true L2. And so when we launched Space, the scaling factor for L2s was about 2x over the L1, over the Ethereum L1. Right now you can see it's about 10x, and that's going to be 50. That's going to be 100x in no time. This is the way that Ethereum is scaling, and I have another chart I can show later, which is the active builders on Base. Actually, I might as well pull it up. This is something that's really, really important and exciting to see. Is you can see the blue line at the bottom. These are active developers on Base. This is measured by like smart contract deployments, et cetera. It's all on-chain activity, and you can see that the like gray
3,
line, which is
is it 3,000 for Base? Is that right? No,
it's actually higher now. This is
okay.
This is actually a little bit dated, but yeah, it's closer to like 6,000-7,000 now.
Okay.
One of the things that's really important is you can actually see there's fewer developers who are actually building on the Ethereum L1, which is that gray line. And that's really telling, because if you looked historically at builders and the origination of smart contracts, they all occurred on the L1, then they kind of moved to the L2. But what we're seeing is actually more builders go start building on the L2 because they want faster block time, they want cheaper block space. And so 6 seconds for Ethereum is great, it's really secure for block time, but it doesn't really have that nearly instantaneous feel that people want and expect. And nobody wants to pay $15 for a mint. Nobody wants to pay $6 to transfer assets. And so that's the other reason that we were super aligned with the L2 space and the Ethereum block space.
Nice. Yeah, I can see that it's been growing like quite fast, exponentially almost. Yeah, I feel like the can see the spike.
Yeah, it's been really exciting. When we launched Base, we weren't really sure what to expect. There was a concern that Base would be organ rejected, that we put it out there and nobody would show up. And when we put it out there, we came out with what we're, in a very intentional manner, we came out with what we're trying to build and our approach to building. And builders responded well. We invited people to come build with us, and they did. It's been incredibly exciting. Base doesn't have a token, and so we don't have this like magic money where we can just go out and give it to the projects to build on us. And that's actually a blessing, because a lot of times new projects launch, they have a token, they go out and they do all sorts of grants. And what they're doing is effectively buying builders and buying traffic. And you see the traffic goes up and then it goes straight back down as soon as the incentives are reduced. And so we feel really good about where we're at, just because we haven't been out there buying the transactions. We haven't been out there buying builders. We've just been out there with very intentional messaging about what we believe and what we're trying to accomplish. And people have been really excited about it. And I'll jump back to Base's mission.
Sure.
When we launched, it was 1 million developers, 1 billion users, and that's still our long-term vision. But what we did this year was we came out with a mission about what we're trying to build, which is building a global on-chain economy, increases innovation, creativity, and freedom. One of the freedom side, one of the core components of that is economic freedom. And economic freedom is really, really, really important. And the reasons behind that is because when you have greater economic freedom, you have things like higher GDP, per capita GDP, you have faster business formation, you have increased life longevity and decreased mortality. And those things all go up and to the right. And what actually goes down with economic freedoms are all the things you really don't want to see: infant mortality, war, corruption. And so we really honed in on this because it's so important to us. Additionally, like creativity, there's numerous studies out there that show that when you are able to be creative in your life, and that takes a lot of different formats. That can be an elegant algorithm, that can be graphic design, that can be art. But when you have greater creativity in your life, you're able to live a happier life and a more fulfilled life. And the innovation side is really along the lines of, we believe this is the future. We want to build the future that we want to live in. And the economy part, like when we launched Base, it was like we had the platform, we had the network, and we had the core constructs there. And we realized after we launched it that it's much bigger than just simply a technical platform. What we're building is an economy, and the components of the economy are the market, the capital markets. It's the value, it's the flow of funds. The other part, which is the platform, and then on the other side of it, you have the app ecosystem, which are the apps that your listeners and everyone who's building on Base are building. If you were to look at this, if you wanted to compare it to another economy, you could actually look at the Apple App Store. It's got a market, it's got value, it's got a platform, it's got apps. The main difference between the two is, like, we're definitely not going to take 30% of your revenue. We're not going to take any percent of your revenue. We're not going to gate you in terms of coming on chain. Like, Base is a public permissionless blockchain. Anybody, anywhere can come build on there, and they can build apps that can interact with anyone, anywhere. Doesn't matter, what country you were born in or where you reside, you're able to get access to the application. The other component is we're not going to reject apps. Obviously, it's permissionless, and you don't need money for an iPhone. It's the Apple App Store is a closed ecosystem. It's only available if you can afford an iPhone or if you want to use that ecosystem. Otherwise, you're kind of out of luck in that scenario. And so Base is for everyone, and not just the Apple users out there. That said, I do like Apple's devices, but
yeah. No, I think that's a very powerful message, and also that's one of the beautiful things about Web3. It's very open for everyone to participate, create a lot of new opportunities for everyone around the world, regardless of your background, whether you're a designer, artist, user, builders, whatever it is, right? Yeah, that's one of the beautiful things. Yeah, and I think Base is, so if I look at this concentric circle here, is it safe to say like developer would be at the core of your economy on Base? Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of break it down into builder, and so a builder can be a developer, a builder can be an artist, a builder can be a writer. That's the core of the developer platform, and it's the network. It's a developer platform, but we're starting to see builders of all skills and all strengths come build on chain, and that's been exciting. It's not just for engineers. It's not just for developers, people who can code. It's really basis for everyone.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, we do need like everyone too. Yeah, because it takes a lot of different types of talents to build an economy, right? Yeah, not only you need the builders, like the coders, but also you need the designer, the one who give out the message, the one who manage the community. There's so many different roles in Web3, right? As we know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Capital markets, you've got DeFi, you've got bankers, you got on and off ramps. There's all these different components that come in to form the economy.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really awesome. So I think I was reading somewhere the other day that in the future, right? Maybe there'll be some linking between Coinbase and Base to make it even easier for people to on ramp. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the core of Base is that there's a complete path to decentralization. It's being incubated by Coinbase, and one of the original goals with Base was to bring Coinbase on chain. Coinbase, you can think of Coinbase as, I don't know, 160, 170 billion dollars of TVL locked into a private L3. It would be a good analogy. But the reality is this, to bring another billion users, and Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, has really been kind of leading this billion users concept for a number of years. But in order to get to 1 billion users, it's not going to be done through a walled garden. There's been a couple of very successful walled gardens, but over the last 20, 30 years, like you had AOL in the 80s, 90s, and then you have Facebook. But a lot of these platforms are either stagnating or not growing. And we believe that it's going to be an open platform. It's going to be a public permissionless blockchain where you're able to move forward. And Coinbase, the Base team has been working with Coinbase pretty extensively to help them bring them on chain. So there's about 10 different initiatives inside of Coinbase right now in order to move more on chain. One of the notable ones that is just out in testnet right now is a smart wallet. It is the easiest onboarding experience I think I've ever seen for creating a self-custody wallet. You don't have to install any software. You don't have to download anything. You go there, use this pass keys in order to secure your assets. You don't have to back up your private key. All that's done handled for you via the operating system. And so the Base team actually came in and wrote all the smart contracts for the smart contract wallet. And so these are highly optimized gas from a gas perspective, smart contracts, also very secure, been audited. So that was one example. Other things are like if you use Coinbase on-ramp, which is Coinbase's on-chain on and off-ramp solution, you're able to transfer assets from Coinbase into Base. Like USDC transfers are actually free, and they're handled and operated by bridges that Coinbase operates. The same is true with Ethereum. It's not free, but the withdrawal periods are much faster than the optimistic roll-up time, which is currently 7 days. So you can move assets in and out faster. Base has also been really supportive of other people building on ramps. So there's a number of different projects out there that are trying to build on ramps, not just for developed markets, but also for less developed markets. If you look at Europe and parts of Asia and the United States, a lot of these on and off ramps are really fairly well established, but there's still a lot of places around the world where it's difficult to move assets on chain. The ultimate goal is there's no off ramp. It's really just we're converting typical historical fiat to assets on chain, and then people are able to interact with value on chain. And a part of that, one of the big blockers that we've been really supportive of people working on, which is local currency stablecoins. If you want to interact with people in, let's just say, Nigeria, it's some people, they're going to use USDC or USDT, but the majority of the economy doesn't necessarily operate using US dollar stablecoins. And so in order to really facilitate more commerce and more activity on chain, we really need to see more and more local currency stablecoins out there in order to proliferate further into replacing traditional financial rails.
Interesting. Yeah. So I think by having more localized version of local currency, right, on chain, probably be easier for people to on ramp off ramp, I suppose. Yeah. But I think one of the things I've also seen is that with there's certain developing country, right, where high inflation is actually a real problem, and I see that stablecoin, where usually kept in like USDC, USDT, is actually help to preserve the purchasing power. Because I mean, let's say if I think Argentina, where my co-host of this show recently went, she told me the inflation there is quite bad in the past couple of years, and people are more and more people are adopting crypto just for the sake of preserving their purchasing power.
Yeah, for sure. I actually lived for a year in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. It was actually in 2009. I went down there for a year with my family, and I saw firsthand the actual amount of inflation. And at that time, I think it was only about 40% inflation versus maybe I think 280-ish% inflation, which was what they're dealing with right now. It was actually funny. I actually ran into Brian Armstrong and met Brian Armstrong in the same time period. Really? He was at the time, he was working on a startup. It was related to some college, something related to universities. Didn't seem like a great idea, but I met him. He was a great guy and listened to what he was building. And if you take a look at and read about Brian, it was really his experience in Argentina, which aligned him with crypto in the future. Because of that experience with the inflated assets. And so it's definitely incredibly important to, for people to have that ability to preserve assets, whether that's moving local currencies into stable US dollar stable coins, or even directly into Ethereum, which is, definitely going to protect itself against local currency inflation. So one's more volatile than the other, but I think eventually we'll see more transactions occurring in crypto native tokens as opposed to some of the stable coins. Yeah,
looking forward to that too. But I think also maybe the local, the national banks and then the national government may also have to support. But again, if they do support, then I guess it will turn into like CBDC, right? Central bank digital currency, which I think is a bit more centralized than the decentralized version.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I've had the opportunity to review several kind of RFIs for CBDCs. And in doing so, I've looked through them. I was like, there's nothing decentralized about this. There's nothing permissionless about this. This is, as far as I can tell, this is just a database. And it's just, the central banks really just asserting more control and more monitoring over the economy. And so I would love to see a lot of legislation on stable coins just to ensure that people are protected, making sure that there's, regulation to protect the backing of those stable coins. But yeah, I'm more excited about stable coins from a fiat translation than I am about CBDCs.
I see. Yeah, same here for me. I'm more excited about the true Web3 version, decentralized version, whether it's backed by fiat, backed by algorithmic, which is like one of the riskier or more volatile type of stablecoin. Yeah, yeah.
Those
It's
ones
quite
make me
interesting.
nervous
It makes you nervous.
after
Okay, yeah.
watching Luna.
Okay, yeah. I know what you mean. But now, I think this year, right, we saw the release of Ethena USD, like USDE, which is like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but basically it's like like backed by, I think, the long Ethereum, and then they short the derivatives portion of it, and then just somehow there's a funding rate involved in there to result in the yield, but like that's the thing that they're trying to keep the peg. So it's all entirely algorithmic. So basically, it's like
Yeah.
delta neutral strategy. It's very interesting, actually. I don't know whether it's sustainable or not. Yeah, I can't make a forecast, but yeah, I've seen some critics of Athena saying that it's quite scary, but we don't know. But it's quite hard to forecast.
Those things make me nervous.
Yeah.
It's like sound weights, sound measures. There's a lot that can go wrong, and you definitely, for something that should be always redeemable, like stable coins theoretically shouldn't trade. They should just be conversions. And if you have an algorithm, you run into an algorithmically backed stablecoin, you run into a risk of, it could be traded, and it could trade for less than value. Inversely, it could also trade for more than the actual value, and some of that kind of defeats the purpose, but of a stablecoin. But I'm always excited to see financial innovation on chain, as I am to see creative innovation, and to see like things like restaurants are going on chain, and governance is on chain, and advocacy is going on chain, and all these different collaborative art and all these different use cases coming on chain are all super exciting to me in space.
Yeah, same. I'm also very excited about any of the new potential use cases that people, just only up to people creativity. So talking about that, I mean, since you have the app ecosystem on there, what are some of the apps, or would you say like dominant or popular on Base?
Yeah, I can talk about some of the ones that I'm really excited about. I really, really, really love Base Paint. It's just creative art. It's collaborative art. Every day you have people coming together to create new art, and they'll set some sort of topic. And the great part about that is that you're starting to see the rewarders or the contributors get rewarded. So there's a mint fee, and a percentage of that goes to the artists who actually contributed to it, and based on the number of pixels, that's the percentage of the revenue. And so they were one of the initial retro funding projects that Base funded. So as I mentioned, we're part of the Superchain, and so we contribute 15% of revenue from the sequencer back to the Optimism Foundation in order to fund public goods. As a result, we're entitled to give out a certain amount of OP tokens as part of the retro funding. And so we're really excited by that project, and that came out, and then it flourished. On the capital market side, I'm excited by Aerodrome and excited by Moonwell. Both are very strong projects that have been occurring. USDC has become a huge force on Base. I think it was last week or the week before where we actually flipped Solana in terms of the amount of USDC actually deployed on Base, which is exciting to see.
That's awesome.
On the DAO side, I'm really liked. One of the things that's been really interesting is we're starting to see more and more DAOs start to move to L2s. And the reason behind that, we had Purple DAO, we had Builder DAO that both moved onto Base. And what was exciting about that is that it's actually going to increase participation in voting. Like, people were spending $15 to vote, which gets expensive, especially if you're trying to refine and trying to encourage engagement.
Wait, what type of voting are we talking about here? What type of
voting? This is generally, how the DAO treasury is spent, or the movement of the DAO and the initiatives the DAOs are sponsoring. And so, for example, there's the Purple DAO, which I'm a member of, is a Farcaster Builder DAO, and it sponsors a number of meetups and events to promote and encourage activity on Farcaster, as well as increase community, increase culture, things of that nature. And so there'll be votes about like, should we spend $1,000 and give it to this person, or a third of an ETH or whatever, and should we give it to this person so they can host an event and buy pizza and things like that. If you take a look at the cost of that when it was on the L1, it might take 45 votes at $15 a vote. It might actually take $675 worth of gas to actually approve that transaction.
That's expensive,
for $1,000. And so by moving to Base, where transactions are anywhere from a quarter of a cent to a couple cents, you're encouraging more on-chain and more interaction from these different organizations. And you're seeing projects like Tally, which was an early Base supporter, which is providing DAO-based software in order to help manage your DAO move to Base. And so I've been really excited by that. On the gaming front, there's been a bunch of innovation on that side. One of the more notable projects is Parallel. It's an amazing game. And they brought the game on chain with in regards to like the avatars and the different characters, and so that was really exciting. On the let's see, what else is there on the NFT front? It's been really exciting to see the activity on Base, and this goes back to if you buy an NFT on the Ethereum L1, it has to have a lot of value to justify those high fees, and so
like
really
blue chip collection,
Exactly. And so like if you have a punk, or if you have, like an ape or something like that, it probably makes sense. But like when Base launched, people started doing mints just to have, and a lot of them were like POAPs and not necessarily in person, but like, I was there when Base launched. I was there when this project launched. I, can really appreciate the art for this, and I don't have to make a sizable investment to appreciate that art. And so one of the things that's been really interesting is actually seeing new ways for artists to earn a living and to make money, which is not necessarily through these blue chips, but through volume. And so if you can take a collection and get 1,000 mints or 5,000 mints, even though the cost of each mint is significantly lower, you can still support your art and support yourself by doing these mints. And we've seen a lot of these on Base. I would argue I'd be surprised if there are more NFTs being minted on any other platform than Base, just given how many are occurring. And people love them. They're having fun with them. You're seeing these Zora mints, Manifold mints on Base. You're seeing Mint.fun mints on Base, and all these different projects tools that support Base and enable creators to come and do these mints.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome to hear that. Yeah, so it sounds like it's just a little bit of everything for everyone at this point. Actually, I'd like to maybe just curious about the people behind Base. Can you tell me how many people work at Base right now? Blockchain.
There's about 25 now. It's a relatively small team. It is expanding. Anybody who's interested can go take a look at base.org/jobs. There's jobs from marketing, ecosystem, smart contract engineer, protocol specialist, DevRel. There's really positions open on all fronts. And so I think one of the superpowers of Base is its ability to operate and execute incredibly efficient. And so when you bring all these amazing people together, it doesn't necessarily require you to have hundreds and hundreds of people. You can get a lot more accomplished when there's less coordination and there's less bureaucracy with fewer people. And so I like to say that Base punches above its weight class. So it's a boxing analogy related to somebody being able to hit harder than their weight.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm curious, is Base actually, if you're a Base employee, are you considered a Coinbase employee or no?
For now.
For now, okay.
The plans, there's some technical hurdles, and then there's just making sure the project can survive on its own, things of that nature. But as I mentioned, the plan is to just fully decentralize out of Base in the coming years, Coinbase in the coming years.
Oh, gotcha. So I guess it's some progressive decentralization roadmap or something like that in the future, right? Yeah, all that. Cool. So with 25 people, how many would you say are like engineering? Or what percent? And then
What percent are engineers? I can tell you that roughly. I think it's more than half.
On the half, okay.
Just looking at an org chart real quick. I can't pull it up, but I would absolutely share this if I could, but I don't.
Yeah,
I can't really dox everybody on the team.
No, exactly. No,
yeah, so it's about half engineering, roughly, and then there's DevRel, ecosystem, and then product. Those fill out the rest of marketing. Sorry.
I see. Cool. Yeah. So actually, I've had a few other DevRels people on my podcast before. I think they told me like their job is quite exciting, right? Like every day you do something different. But usually they told me like there's a bit of coding. I mean, that's a dev part, and then like the rel is like the relationships. So you have community building and maybe teaching other people. Like what is your like day to day or what is your week to week like? Can you share with us?
Yeah. So the team mainly, so they'll spend 20% coding, roughly 20% doing tutorials and creating content so that builders can come in and learn about how to build on Base. 20% is probably meetings and chats, Telegram, Slack, all the different channels, Discord, to interact with other builders for the most part. And we really pride ourselves on working with everyone on Base. So, it doesn't matter if you're a hobbyist or if you're two people in a garage building a startup, like Base is going to be there and Base is going to interact. And so we also spend a decent amount of time testing out builders' apps. So people are always asking for feedback, and that's been an incredibly fun and rewarding part of the job, is where you're going in and you're seeing the creative energy and you're seeing the propensity to deliver and build. And you get to test these and provide feedback and make suggestions. And then what's even more exciting is when they tune their apps and they're able to find product market fit and start to see the growth there. And then the last 20%, dealing with everyone else on the team, internal interactions, miscellaneous. The DevRel team is a bit of a glue. It's a bit of a scaling. So we interact on a lot of different fronts. We work with help marketing, we help product engineering, in order to help them scale and grow. So yeah, I guess that's a day in the life. It's a bit of juggling. If you ever saw the Cat in the Hat book from out there, there's a piece of art on the cover, and it's a cat, and he's balancing on a ball, and he's balancing a plate on a stick, and he has a fishbowl, and really just kind of like, without the destructive nature of that story of the cat, it's really about like being able to balance and being able to juggle and being able to be dynamic. And so some people find that a little challenging at first to the constant context switches, but over time people get involved, engaged, and they really enjoy the excitement and the energy of all these different initiatives they're working on.
I see. Yeah, that sounds quite awesome, really exciting. Like a lot of things you get to work on, and already meeting new people, new project as well. I think recently I read a document from Brian Armstrong about like what sort of people like they are looking for to work at Base or Coinbase, right? It looks like, I think one thing I remember from the document he wrote was that you have to be like extraordinary in some field or something, right, to be work at Base. So I mean, when I see that, I'm like, dang, the bar, the work at Base or Coinbase is like really high, right? But extraordinary, I think he also gave example, like you have to be like an athlete, for example. If you build something like an entrepreneur, like, I mean, your background is for sure like very exceptional for sure, right? You probably fit in that. So we have done something like beyond, right? Something maybe like volunteer, build an NGO organization, something like that. Yeah. So when I saw that, I was like, wow, yeah, the quality of talent must be really good at Base.
Yeah, it's a concept I think that was maybe inadvertently or intentionally borrowed from Amazon, which is raising the bar. And I carried this over to my team, where any new hire needs to be better than 50% of the team. And so if you bring in people that are equal to or lower, then you're lowering the bar of talent. But if that person, every new hire is better than 50% of the team, then you keep raising the talent level. And it has a really good forcing factor to the people that were hired before, where they are forced to continue to increase their skills and up their game and develop themselves. And it's a hard challenge, but when you create that type of environment where people are constantly learning and constantly developing, it creates a really creative and a really innovative environment where people are learning and branching out and studying. And I guess the other 20% of people's jobs, which is not included in their day job on the DevRel team, is skill development. We try and make room as much as possible, but a lot of that just falls into, this is your night job. So is to keep developing your skills. And nobody really ever, I've not run into anybody who really ever complained about being forced to study and being not forced, but having it part of their job be to develop their skill sets. Like, these are things that really motivate people and keep them engaged in building with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, to be honest, I think that's probably not only a base thing. I think it's also for the Web3 industry as a whole. I feel like when I joined Web3, I realized, damn, people in Web3 work really hard, And I think the 24/7, it's not really, I think it's pretty normal. I think people just take it, not only like the market of crypto, like, operate 24/7, but most of the people that I know who work extremely hard in crypto, right? Because you're constantly new innovation, new learning coming up. So you have to catch up on new concept, like maybe from week to week, from month to month. So if you don't catch up, you'll be left behind, and then it's extremely hard to stay relevant in the crypto space if you don't learn. Yeah. So I totally share that.
Yeah, it's funny. At AWS, it was always like, the rate of innovation keeps going. Like, this year it'd be 14,000 new features and products that came out. Next year it'd be 1,800, 2,000, etc. That's one of the things that really brought me into building on chain, which was the rate of innovation is actually faster. The fire hose is bigger. The amount of knowledge that you need to consume is greater, and so that really aligns with personal happiness is continuing to learn and continuing to expand.
Yeah, it's good. What are some of the challenges, would you say, facing base with a 25%? And you said that punching above the weight, so I imagine like people must work a lot.
Challenges are, retaining culture and ethos as we scale, making sure that everyone remains fully aligned with the vision and the future. Can be definitely challenging. The other part is hiring. Like, it's challenging when the bar is set so high, and when you are effectively looking at top 1% in the field, and convincing those people to come build with you is definitely a challenge. But it's so worthwhile to put in that effort and that time to ensure that you keep raising the bar. Other challenges, we've been scaling the network. Actually, I didn't really cover this, but one of the things that happened when EIP 4844 was released is that we saw that the gas fees went down by an order of magnitude, I think 30x. We saw the number of transactions go up by 4x. And as a result, one of the things you can see is the gas fees spiked. So that was the challenge. And so right now we are scaling the network. We're increasing the gas limit, the gas target. So our goals right now are 400x in 400 days. This is actually, I think this week we hit 7.5 or 7 megagas, and the goal is to get to a gigagas, so that there's ample block space for everyone. The challenge here is ensuring network stability, working with partners. Hardware requirements will change, and the goal is to not require people to have a $30,000 mainframe to run a node. We want to ensure that Base can be run on pretty standard commodity hardware. So this is also a challenge that we're dealing with, but there will be bumps along the way as we scale it. If the transaction volume goes up high enough, then congestion pricing kicks in, the network protects itself, and that was a little bit what you saw in this chart right there, and as well as in terms of the fees over.
Wow, was that like $10? I think I saw like the spike of $10, right?
Yeah,
for one
it was so painful.
Yeah. Oh man!
Because we launched. This is the first big rock that the base engineering team, which was implementing EIP 4844 into the OP stack, and we poured our blood, sweat, and tears in it. We launched it. There were like quarter-cent mints. It was just beautiful. And then everybody's like, Base is free. And then the volume went up massively. And then the fees shot back up, and we're like, oh no. And so There's further optimizations we can do to EIP 4844 on the stack. Additionally, as I mentioned, increasing the gas target will also decrease the network fees. We don't have a native token. We don't have any tokenomics. So we know that the amount of activity on chain increases when we drop fees. So dropping those fees as low as possible is our North Star for Base.
I see. Yeah, for sure. I think lately, I mean, last time I used Base, maybe a couple of days or maybe a week ago, it was like maybe its gas was like 1 cent or something, which is very low. And I think that's basically the standard. 1 cent or less is, I think, what most people are very comfortable paying for gas without thinking. But if you ask like $5, $10, you have to think, is it worth it, or like, you tam the gas.
Yeah, exactly. And long-term sub-cent transaction, sub-second block time is what we're working towards in the future.
But how when you say scaling, how do you scale though? Do you add more nodes? Is that how?
No, it's increasing the gas target, so the amount of transactions that can occur per block is what scales the network.
Okay, but what do you have to do to achieve that?
It's just a configuration setting. We do a lot of we do a lot of simulation. We work closely with Optimism in order to let them know where we're going, and so as well as like node operators, like as being in touch with them as much as possible. Like we don't want to be a situation where they're really at the limit of their hardware with the current gas target, and then the number of transactions goes up and then their nodes go down. So we're just being very deliberate and intentional with the increasing of the gas target over time. And so it's not the EIP 4844 enhancements are related to the pipeline, the aggregation pipeline. So like one of the things we're releasing is additional compression on the data, and that we feel will drop the fees by 10 to 20% by doing so. We still have to pay on the Base side. The Base network has to pay the Ethereum L1 to push that data into the consensus layer on our side. So there's the blob space fees.
I see. Yeah. Interesting. And then for how many nodes would you say on the network you were running?
we haven't done a full P2P crawl, so it's actually always a challenge. There's no like heartbeat or anything back to any centralized system. Yeah. So we really need to. This is something we need to get better with. Is just understanding it. There's a couple different tools out there for crawling P2P networks, especially EVM-based networks, and so we actually need to get better at doing that. I do know that we do have nodes in Asia, North America, South America. I know there are nodes in, I think, almost every continent outside of, I don't think there's any in Antarctica yet, but
probably not.
I think at this point in time, there are nodes on nearly every continent. But we'd like to see that change. I think the future that everybody has in the EVM space is being able to run a pocket node, and maybe not like obviously processing all transactions, but being able to broadcast to the network from some sort of lightweight client on your device without the need for the node operators are there's a lot of them, so there's great diversity, but like it would be great so that everybody can interact on chain, and there are public RPC endpoints, but those having those nodes on your mobile device, I think is the future.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree with that too. Yeah, there's so many different type of node, like you mentioned. You have like full node, which is a more full node, obviously, and then archival node, and then light node. Is probably light nodes. I'm pretty excited about. If you can run it on your cell phone, I think that's pretty cool, actually, right? So more people can participate, and it will help the goal of decentralization as well. So that'll be quite powerful. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Is there any other slide you want to share from your deck? It's a pretty long deck.
No, I think that's good.
Okay, we can cut out the slide. Maybe just chat about Web3.
The only thing I would kind of highlight is we're really interested in looking for builders to come build with us. A lot of you all have turned out. We're still in the early innings, so we're expecting a lot more builders to move on chain and start building. And Base has builder grants for non-venture funded. Like we have 1 to 5 ETH grants, really what they're available for is to try and give people a little bit of runway if they want to take and try and start building an idea. It's, as I mentioned, everything is retroactive. And so, it's build it, deploy it, be scrappy, show impact. And then, they'll definitely be eligible for a base builder grant. And then also, the Optimism retro funding rounds, which is the way that we're able to support builders who are having an outsized impact. But, those are, they're time locked. There's other kind of nuances to the retro funding. And that's where the builder grants are meant to kind of come in there and be a filler on that side. So looking forward to building with everyone.
Yeah, I think building the builder grants and everything in the ecosystem is certainly a very good tool to help onboard more developers. Myself personally, I've been joining a lot of hackathons, so I think it's really fun and enjoyable experience for a lot of people. Actually, I have a few other Web3 random questions though I want to ask you about. One is that, I see that nowadays we have a lot more of these chain development kit or chain building, right? So I'm kind of just thinking about the future. Do you foresee a future with like hundreds or maybe even 1,000 chain? Because nowadays it's so easy to deploy a chain, right? Coexisting together, or do you see like more of a consolidation in the future of the number of chains? So what future do you see for?
I see. On the L2 front, I think there's going to be a proliferation of L2s. I think there'll be a lot more that come out. I also think that we're starting to see that, which is really exciting, is L3s come out. L3s can be both public and private. They can be permissionless. They can be permissioned. And then they take advantage of on and off ramps and the security of the L2. So I think we'll start to see more of those as well. It does, if you're like a financial institution, you may not want to embrace full transparency because you're just not ready for it yet. And so you can do so on the L2, but then you can actually do so with value that's secured by the L2 on the L3. I think it'll grow up massively, and then I think it'll consolidate a little bit. But on the base side, like we view ourselves as a bridge and not an island. So we think that as more and more people come on chain, they will do so with base, but then they'll eventually start going out to other ecosystems. And that's why we were so excited about the Superchain, because that's the vision of the Superchain, which is a series of interconnected L2s, where you're able to, transparently or with low friction, move assets back and forth between the different L2s.
So
on the
Superchain, and please correct me if I'm wrong here. Is it true that do the chain share liquidity, or what do they? Is there something? I mean, I think they share the security, right? That's probably. I mean, I think all of it share the security from the L1, but do they share the liquidity or some other thing that benefits
as of now?
Superchain?
As of now, you can bridge assets between different L2s, and it's using the traditional cross-chain messaging for the most part. The future is liquidity wouldn't necessarily be shared, but it would be incredibly easy to move assets between the different L2s in the Superchain. It's a little bit like the Cosmos ecosystem, but I think that they were very innovative in terms of their ability to transfer assets between chains. And I think some of the UX issues is where there's, if you're going to provide any feedback to them, it's like understanding channels and having to have gas on all these different networks became really confusing. And I still have assets that are like all these different networks and channels, and sometimes you screw things up and you got to unwind it. I think that was a great innovation forward, but I think that there's room to make that experience a lot easier for builders. I think that they can also figure out ways to simplify it as well.
For sure. Yeah, I think one of the problems I see in a lot of, so I mean, if from your image, like a lot of proliferation of chain, then I see that there'll be a fragmentation of liquidity, right? Like for example, let's say you have a pair of USDT ETH on base, then of course there's USDT ETH on many other chain, right? But if you pull them together or some way, be like less slippage and more liquidity for everyone compared to just
I think if we take a look at it, the global assets and the amount of capital in traditional markets, I think that's $100 trillion or some number that's astronomical. I think there's room for many different systems. I mean, we have many different stock exchanges for traditional securities. So I do think that there's plenty of opportunity to have numerous networks. I think we will eventually see more consolidation to, like, if you take a look at like Celo's looking to move to become an L2.
Yeah.
I think that a lot more chains will eventually do things like that, even if like they're not EVM native. I think some of these other networks will eventually roll up into Ethereum. That wouldn't surprise me to see more consolidation on that side. It's really expensive to operate an L1, and from a technology, especially if it's a unique stack and something that isn't shared and developed by a number of parties. It's difficult to get decentralization of clients and execution layers. Ethereum brings a lot of this to the table, which is great. So that decentralization component is kind of baked into not only the ethos of Ethereum, but also the ecosystem around it, the developers and the different platforms and software development firms that contribute to the project.
Yeah, true. Just a couple more questions from my side here. One, I think you already mentioned already, but anyway, I just want to ask again. What can we do, builders, to help bring on board 1 billion people on chain?
Yeah, I think right now there's a golden opportunity to move novel or traditional or established businesses that are online on chain. I think that we've seen a lot of innovation on the wallet front, where I mentioned the Coinbase Smart Wallet, but on the account abstraction front, there's really a lot of innovation like Pimlico and Dynamic, which are creating these very simple user onboarding experiences where you can sign up with a Web2 flow and gain access to the blockchain. And a lot of the nuances of the blockchain can be obfuscated from the user so that they don't need to, know about like connecting wallets, signing transactions, things of that nature, the wallet technology is like one of the major blockers in mass blockchain adoption. I use the analogy of like, if I set my mom up I pick on my mom, I set her up with a EOA, and like after she backs up her secret phrase into a Post-it note, puts it on her monitor under a keyboard. I can imagine that's how she would do it. And then I'd be receiving text messages every 5 minutes. Be like, should I sign this? Should I sign this? And she'd eventually get rugged and drained. And so, until we have a better wallet technology experience, and over the last year, it's really been inspiring to see the innovations along the account abstraction side. And Base has been really investing in that space and helping. My team especially has been producing content for free about how to use account abstraction, how to build on it. And that applies to any EVM chain. It's not specific to Base, but it is something that we feel is important for everybody to be educated on. So I think that is really kind of the blocker, is making those experiences feel more like Web2. I think if back to the, kind of bringing businesses on chain that were currently not online, I think if you take a look at when the internet came out, people were taking novel established business ideas and bring them online, and they were able to scale them pretty massively. And I think we see a similar inflection point where people can bring new businesses on chain, and they can do so and have a huge competitive advantage because they're bringing out these businesses on chain, and they're bringing being able to interact with value without bringing in a third party intermediary. Like, you can set up and start operating immediately. You don't need to go to a bank and show them your bank seal and all the stuff like that that's required to set up a business account, which is just absolutely ridiculous. So I think that reduces friction so people can move faster. They can reduce their costs, the infrastructure cost of running online versus on chain. You have all sorts of architectural decisions to make, software selections. With moving on chain, all these decisions are baked into the platform. So you can develop your smart contract. You don't have to make decisions about like which message queue am I going to use, which centralized infrastructure am I going to use, and I think that's really going to move things forward. And then removing gas, like as we drive network fees down on chain, the gas fee. One of the things that I'm envisioning is most of the apps out there are going to start just subsidizing gas, and they'll just pay it themselves as part of like doing business. It certainly is going to be cheaper than credit card swipes and credit card fees that people are required to pay when they use like credit cards. And so I think all these factors together are going to help move forward with the next billion users on chain. The other side, I guess the last one I would cover would be identity. Right now we have like ENS, and we have the early formation of identity on chain. But until we can get reliable identity on chain, there's not going to be credit. So I can get an over collateralized loan on chain, but I can't go buy a house with an over collateralized loan. I can't buy a car. I can do things like, swap NFTs or, do some sort of weird arbitrage with DeFi, but I can't, there's no credit. So until we have reliable identity, there's no credit. And that's going to be a blocker with moving and replacing existing financial systems in order to bring them on chain.
Awesome. Yeah. So 4 points. I'm just going to try to see if I can summarize what you said. One is like wallet or abstracting away the Web3 aspect of it so people can, use Web3 without it. Second point, I like the second point because bringing more businesses online, right? Yeah. And then I think my last guest, he also says something similar, Leonard Hilke. Just leave a link up here to the previous episode. But he was saying that he want to bring more online shops online. Like if more online shops on chain, then people will come because obviously online shops sell stuff, right? And then if they bring it there, and then they would come. And then I think you said identity. That was the last point. And then there was one before that. Sorry, I forgot. What was the third one?
It's really cheap block space, wallet technology, and identity. Those are the core. That these are actually, these three things are core to us at Base in terms of like how we format the roadmap in order to get to that vision of a million developers and a billion users on chain.
Awesome. Yeah, which segue to the perfectly to my next question. That's just two final questions here on what any advice you want to give for people who want to build on Base, whether they are creator, developers, or any type of builders.
Yeah, I guess the easiest one is talk less, build more. Like we'll talk to anybody if they have an idea and it's interesting, but where we really start to engage is when you start building and showing progress. Like, it's easy for somebody to be like, I have this great idea. A lot of people have great ideas, and it's really about your ability to execute on chain and ability to execute on that kind of vision that you have for your project. And so there's interesting, in addition to the Base Builders grants, there's interesting initiatives that are going on Farcaster, which is, the build channel. And then there's also a Base Builds channel where people are coming and sharing and highlighting what they're building on. And we actually use a lot of that for identifying builders for builder grants.
Nice.
But additionally, I would definitely check out the Farcaster Builds channel.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. I think when I release episode, I'll make sure to actually see if I can make a post in that channel for that. Yeah, Farcaster. I'm also a user of Webcast Farcaster also. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thank you. Final question: where can people follow you? Feel free to share any.
I'm most active on Farcaster on consecution.eth. I know that's a mouthful. And
is it consecution?
Yeah, I'll just throw it in the chat.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll make sure to put your handle name down the show notes, and also with some of the links that you said earlier in the episode as well too, so people can follow.
And then on X, on Consecution X. On Twitter, but you can reach me on both channels. You can DM me, but I'm definitely more active on Farcaster.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Ryan. It's been a lot super fun learning about Base and talking with you today. Yeah, for sure for me, I learned a lot today. Yeah, so fun to learn about the ecosystem and work you do with it. Awesome.
Appreciate it. It was great meeting you in India, and I'm glad that we've been able to continue building together. So really excited. Pleased to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Good one.
Have a good day.
And we are back to my studio. I think Base has a talented team and they will continue to grow in the coming days. Which metrics do you think Base will achieve first? 1 million developers or 1 billion users in the on-chain economy? Let us know in the comments below. For the next episode, we'll be talking to Ken Timsit. He's the managing director at Kronos Labs, who's the team behind the 3 distinct blockchains. To find out about those blockchains, please stay tuned for the next episode. Once again, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and see you next time.